Rev up your engines!
Metropolitan and TW says, Scotty, have you ever converted a gasoline engine-powered car to electric? Any tips on how to do it? You know, I haven't, but I got my 94 Celica sitting out there, and I would love to convert it to an electric car. So if anybody out there has a kit, please send it to Scotty, and I will try it out. I think that would make some very interesting videos, and it would prove some very interesting points, because eventually, I'm sure, people will mass-produce kits. There's already kits out there for some Hondas, and it actually fits right on the CV axles that are already in the front-wheel drive Honda, so you don't even have to change the drivetrain or the suspension. You just drop the electric motor and put a battery in the trunk. So, I mean, I'd love it if somebody comes out with a kit like that. Eventually, someone probably will, because take my 94 Celica. It's almost exactly the same as a Toyota Corolla, of which they sold over 45 million. So there's a gigantic market of cars out there. If people want to go electric, they can make a Corolla conversion kit. They're smaller cars, so they're going to be more efficient, even though they can still easily fit 5 people inside. Sounds like a good idea to me. So if anybody out there has kits that fit a 94 Toyota Corolla, please send them to Scotty. I'll try the kit out, put it in the car. It could be interesting, because if there's going to be an electric car I'd drive, it would be my 94 Celica. So please, anybody out there's got a kit, hey, send it to me. Bring it over. Pete says, I got an 06 Toyota Tundra with a 6-cylinder engine. It's 399,000 miles. Should I go ahead and change the water pump? I can't see it going much longer. Definitely change the water pump. I would change that water pump. If it's still got a rubber timing belt, change the timing belt while you're changing the water pump, and also change the idler pulley for the timing belt, because they will go out over time too. And use OEM. Think about it. If the original Toyota pump went 399,000 miles, get another one. Don't buy a cheap aftermarket one. Get the original equipment Toyota one made in Japan. Lasted that long, what the heck? You're getting your money's worth out of that vehicle. There's no arguing that. D. Smith 12 says, what damage could I have done to my rear wheel suspension? I spun out in the snow and hit a curb. I was going about 15 miles an hour and the snow made it hit kind of softer. Could it have bent the rear subframe axle, or could it be just hub and arm damage? All right, generally that slow won't hurt the hub, but yes, you hit the nail on the head. The control arm, the lower control arm, because when you hit the curb, you hit the bottom, and it's pushing it in. Have that checked. It's a 2007 Ford Focus. Like you say, that's front wheel drive. The rears just spin. But the rears also need to be aligned. People talk about front end alignments. They also need rear wheel alignments. Go to a good alignment shop, have them check. If they say your alignment's okay, fine, no damage. If they say it's really off on that right, you're probably going to have to change the lower control arm on the right rear, and you're probably going to have to get it realigned. So find a good alignment guy to check it. If he says, no, your alignment's okay, have the rim checked too. It could have bent the rim. That's the other thing at that low speed. Now you think the snow cushioned. The snow didn't cushion anything. The snow's light. I'm going to cop a vehicle when it hits a curb, but have that checked at a good alignment shop. And pray that, hey, maybe you just bent the rim, or maybe you didn't bend anything. They can check it at an alignment job. Joe Mike 21 says, guys, I'm looking to replace the bulbs in my Honda Civic. Stock halogen are okay, but I want brighter HID or LEDs. Any good ones you can recommend? Do not get HID. That was the past. High intensity discharge. That's the past. They're expensive. They create all kinds of problems. They run on real high voltage. It's just a pain in the butt. Get LEDs. And for that Honda, the best ones I find, they're excellent bulbs. They're called Bosilla. They make a whole range of them. You can pick what you want. They're made so well that everything's in them. They just snap in and they plug into your wiring harness. You don't have to buy ballast resistors or anything. It's all built into the system. Bosilla, they're excellent. I've got them in a couple of my cars and I've had no problems with them whatsoever. Kyle Dot, all right, says, I got an '05 Chrysler Sebring 2.7 V6 4-speed automatic. I bought it, and the cruise control pulls my gas pedal down and it revs up to 3,500 RPMs. Now my transmission shifts late, but it was running smoother before I replaced the oxygen sensor. He also says he lives in a cold climate. It's an '05 Sebring. I'm surprised it's shifting at all. Most of those things, that was one of the worst cars they ever built, Chrysler ever built. It's revving up too long before it shifts. Generally, that's more a transmission problem than anything else. Now, you said you replaced the oxygen sensor. First, everything's interrelated. The engine, the pollution system, the transmission, they all talk to each other with computer modules. So, if you did not use an original equipment oxygen sensor, say bought one from a discount auto parts store, take that one off, take it back, and buy the original equipment oxygen sensor. Could be that's the whole problem. Now, if it isn't, odds are your transmission's just starting to go out. It's an '05 Sebring, and they generally don't even last that long. Now, what you could try is you could change the fluid and filter, and you could put 1 quart of Lucas automatic transmission shift fixer, and sometimes it'll help after 200-300 miles of driving. But like I say, if you didn't use an OEM sensor, use that first because they're all tied in. You never know what can feed back to what. Because you said it wasn't doing it before you changed it. So what the heck? Always do the obvious thing first. You change that part, maybe that part's bad. Kaizen says, what is your dream Frankenstein car? Consider you could put together any branded components from any make or model. What would you put together? Last week, this cool dude from out in the country here in Tennessee brought me an international truck that he bought for $1,200. Had less than 100,000 miles. It had a straight 6-cylinder diesel engine with a mechanical fuel injection system. I loved that truck. It was cool. I would add things onto that. It has a huge metal back. It used to have one of those cranes on top of it. It broke, so they tore the crane off of it. But you could do whatever you want. You could have a mobile house. You could have mobile whatever you wanted on that thing. That was really cool. And those old diesel engines, not only could they run forever, but it's all mechanical. So then there's this computer crap that you got to deal with. It was one solid truck. I was amazed that he could pick that thing up for $1,200. It ran like a clock. It didn't even have cold start injectors. It didn't even have glow plugs. It just started by itself. It had a high compression engine. Man, it just cranked up and boom, away it went. It was one amazing truck, and I could have a lot of fun modifying that and putting different parts on it. It wouldn't be a car. It'd be that international. It was cool. It had like 10 speeds, too, so you could have fun shifting all the time, too. Hursty one says, can I put a metal plug in a plastic oil pan? I got a BMW 16 428i. Got to strip my oil drain plug, and I have a plastic oil pan. Can you use a thread cutting bolt on a plastic pan? Is there a problem using a metal bolt on a plastic pan? No, actually, that's the very best way to do it. Plastic is reasonably soft, and if you get a self-cutting thread metal one, it will easily cut in and it should seal it quite well. And what I would do if I were you, I would find the specifications of the torque and use a torque wrench every time you put that drain bolt on to make sure you don't get it too tight and rip all the plastic out. Definitely do that. But yeah, metal can cut through plastic, and there's no problem with metal on plastic. You know, just every time you do it, put a new gasket on so you don't have to over-tighten it so it won't leak. And since that guy stripped it out, hey, I'd personally go to a different mechanic. That isn't doing very good work. You should have known that's a plastic pan. You got to be real careful with them. Well, if you're the man who has everything, maybe you want to get a GP Moto trainer for motorcycles. Now, it doesn't come cheap. You do the actual GP training. You do it on an actual motorcycle in the convenience of your own garage or cellar or wherever you want to set it up. There's only one catch. One, you got to supply your own racing motorcycle to put on the trainer, and if you want the fully functioning one with all the lean features and everything, it's $18,130. But it does include a PC with it. Now, these PC games are rather popular, but that is kind of pricey. Considering that you have to shell out over 18 grand, and you still got to have your own motorcycle to put on the simulator. As I say, it's called Moto Trainer. Well, I can see one good use for it. The guys that get one of those big, fast motorcycles, and it scares the heck out of them, and they're not driving them anymore, they can put it on a training thing, and they can have all the experience of the driving in a race and learn how to really do it well, and not actually have to go anywhere and worry about crashing because it's sitting there on the simulator. And it's your actual motorcycle, so maybe you'll get to be good enough on a trainer that you can take it out in the real world and do it right without killing yourself. So if you got 18 grand in a motorcycle lying around, what the heck? Why not buy one? And if you do, hey, tell Scotty, I'd love to try one of these things out because I'm too cheap to spend 18 grand. I got a couple of motorcycles, but I'm not going to spend $18,000. How can the loss of vacuum cleaners cause Honda to come out with the new 2022 Odyssey van already the first month of the year? Well, here's how. Their supply chain of these vacuums somehow got messed up, so they couldn't get any. Well, the 2021 Honda Odyssey vans have that inside shop vac for the whole van, which is a big sales point. I know people that just bought those things, so they had that all set up so they could clean it real easy. Well, they couldn't get the vacuum, so they decided, well, we're going to bring out the 2022s because very quietly, Honda dropped the vacuums from their Odyssey. So 2022 doesn't come with that cool vacuum setup. You're going to have to try to find either a used one or a 2021 that they haven't sold yet that has the vacuum attached to it. But if you listen to me, I tell people not to buy Honda Odyssey vans anyways. have got history of transmission and engine problems, so I don't advise people to buy them anyways. And I mean, I would certainly not buy a vehicle just because it had a vacuum in it. You can add that stuff in if you want. It's not that complicated to do. But the loss of these vacuum cleaners that they couldn't put in forced them to bring out the 2022s in January of 2021. Years and makes of cars, they don't mean that much anymore. All because they couldn't get vacuum cleaners. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.